the Ice Lion and the Sun Hawk, from rivals to rulers. In the distant world of Eloria, two vast and ancient empires dominated the landscape, divided by insurmountable natural and cultural barriers. To the north, the kingdom of Velka stretched across frozen plains, jagged mountains, and snow-capped forests. Its people were as cold and unyielding as the ice itself, renowned for their mastery of frost magic. Emperor Tarquin, the Ice Lion, ruled from his glacial throne, an imposing figure of steel and fur, his presence as harsh as the winter storms that swept his realm. Under his command, Velka's armies of frost-hardened warriors were feared by all who lived to the south. To the south lay the sun-drenched empire of Solara, where endless deserts, lush oases, and glittering cities baked under a burning sun. Emperor Cyrus, the Sun Hawk, ruled from his golden palace in Solaster, a radiant city of shining spires. Known for his wisdom and fiery charisma, Cyrus commanded an empire of wealth, culture, and unparalleled military might. His legions were battle-hardened soldiers who wielded fire magic and thrived in the sweltering heat of the desert. The people of Solara revered the sun, and their emperor was seen as its divine representative. For as long as anyone could remember, Velka and Solara had been sworn enemies. Their hatred had spanned generations, passed down through blood and tradition. The Velkans raided Solara's southern cities for resources, using their frost magic to freeze the rivers and chill the crops. The Solarans retaliated with fire, scorching the northern borderlands, reducing the frozen towns of Velka to ash and steam. The conflict between the two empires was endless, a cycle of destruction that seemed unbreakable. Emperor Tarquin believed Cyrus to be an arrogant ruler, soft from luxury and blinded by his empire's wealth. In return, Cyrus saw Tarquin as a barbarian, a ruler of savage lands, unfit to stand in the light of Solara's glory. But despite their differences, both empires were nearing their breaking points. Velka's endless winters were growing harsher, and their raids, once prosperous, had become increasingly difficult. Solara, too, struggled. The empire's expansion had overextended its resources, and the desert sun had begun to turn against them, with droughts and crop failures crippling the once mighty empire. Yet neither ruler could see past their hatred to seek peace, each too proud to admit they were faltering. Then, a strange event changed everything. One fateful evening, the sky above both empires darkened. A swirling celestial storm appeared, unlike anything the people had ever seen. The storm blotted out the sun in Solara and brought unnatural warmth to the coldest reaches of Velka. For weeks, the storm raged, turning day into night, unsettling the very balance of nature. Crops withered in both lands, rivers ran dry, and a terrible sickness began to spread among the people. The ancient scholars and seers of both empires studied the phenomenon and found an old prophecy hidden in forgotten texts. The prophecy foretold of a great storm that would ravage the world, and only through the union of fire and ice could the balance be restored. It warned that two great enemies would have to put aside their hatred and unite their powers, or both would perish in darkness. Neither Tarquin nor Cyrus believed in prophecies. They had been raised in an age of war and power, where peace was seen as weakness. But as the storm continued to wreak havoc, they had no choice but to consider the impossible. Their empires were crumbling beneath the weight of the storm, and soon there would be nothing left to rule. Finally, a messenger was sent from Solara to Velka, carrying a reluctant offer from Cyrus, a truce, and a meeting in neutral territory to discuss the prophecy. Tarquin, equally hesitant but seeing no other way, agreed. The meeting took place in a remote valley where neither the heat of the desert nor the cold of the north could dominate. Both emperors arrived with great fanfare, each with an army of guards at their back. Tarquin, towering in his fur-lined armor, his silver sword glinting in the low light, stared across at Cyrus, who wore robes of gold and crimson, his sun-shaped crown blazing even in the dim light of the storm. The tension in the air was palpable, with each side ready to draw swords at the slightest provocation. For hours, the two men sat in silence, unwilling to be the first to speak. Finally, Tarquin broke the silence, his voice cold and cutting. "You brought me here to speak of peace, yet all I've seen from your empire is fire and ruin." Cyrus, unfazed, responded in kind. "Your people raid our lands, freeze our crops, and you speak of ruin? We are both to blame, Tarquin." The conversation was filled with bitterness, as each emperor reminded the other of the pain and destruction their wars had caused. But as the night wore on, the harsh words gave way to something unexpected. They began to speak not just of war, but of their people. Tarquin revealed the hardships of ruling over a land where survival itself was a battle against the elements. Cyrus spoke of the burden of maintaining an empire that was slowly dying under the weight of its own excess. For the first time, they saw each other not as monsters, but as men, rulers with the same fears and responsibilities. They realized that their empires were mirror images of one another, each struggling to endure, each facing ruin if the other fell. And so, reluctantly at first, they agreed to work together. With their combined wisdom, they formulated a plan. Tarquin's frost mages, masters of the cold, and Cyrus' flame priests, wielders of fire magic, would unite to break the storm. A grand ritual would be performed at the heart of the storm, where ice and fire would meet, and their opposing forces would balance the chaos that threatened their world. The day of the ritual came, and for the first time in centuries, the armies of Velka and Solara stood side by side, not as enemies, but as allies. The frost mages conjured towering pillars of ice, while the flame priests summoned swirling inferno.